Good Monday morning. I'm Otis Corbett, and I'm coming to you on Facebook this morning so that we can all start off this week the right way with Scripture and prayer. Our scriptures for today come from Psalm 77. And this passage reads, I cried out to God with my voice, and He gave ear to me. In the day of my trouble, I sought the Lord. My hand was stretched out in the night without ceasing. My soul refused to be comforted. I remembered God and was troubled. I complained and my spirit was overwhelmed. Selah. You hold my eyelids open. I am so troubled I cannot speak. I have considered the days of old, the years of ancient times. I called to remembrance my song in the night. I meditate within my heart, and my spirit makes diligent search. Will the Lord cast off forever? Will He be favorable no more? Has His mercy ceased forever? Has His promise failed forevermore? Has God forgotten to be gracious? Has He in anger shut up His tender mercies? Selah. And I said, this is my anguish, but I will remember the years of the right hand of the Most High. I will remember the works of the Lord. Surely I will remember your wonders of old. I will also meditate on all your work and talk of your deeds. Your way, O God, is in the sanctuary. Who is so great a God as our God? You are the God who does wonders. You have declared your strength among the peoples. You have with your arm redeemed your people, the sons of Jacob and Joseph. Selah. The waters saw you, O God. The waters saw you. They were afraid. The depths also trembled. The clouds poured out water. The skies sent out a sound. Your arrows also flashed about. The voice of your thunder was in the whirlwind. The lightnings lit up the world. The earth trembled and shook. Your way was in the sea, your path in the great waters, and your footsteps were not known. You led your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. One of Israel's major problems was a bad memory. And of course, sometimes our memory today isn't as good as it should be either. You may have heard about the absent-minded professor who came back from lunch and saw a sign on his door that said, "Be back in 30 minutes," and then he sat down to wait for himself. Maybe you haven't, but once my son came to me with searching for some help because he had forgotten where he'd put his glasses. But he was holding his glasses in his hand when he was asking me for help to find his glasses. Have you ever had an important document that you put in a safe place but then forgot where it was? You might be like the deacon in my home church who said that his forgetterer was getting better and his rememberer was getting worse as he kept having some senior moments as he got older. Well, the psalmist had a good memory. He remembered some things about his God in times of trouble that helped him, and there are things that we should remember too when we get into times of trouble. First, the psalmist remembered past concerns. Popular theology can't handle difficulty. It says that obedient people will always prosper, and it says that disobedient people will always suffer. Now, this isn't necessarily true. For example, I know about a young Bible college student and his wife who was killed on a railroad crossing. Everybody said they were a lovely couple, but they got hit by the train anyway. And also, I've known of more than one church group, a youth group, who had a wreck where youth members in that church died in a van wreck. And we must remember that righteous people can suffer. Abraham, Job, and Daniel in the Old Testament, Peter, John, Paul in the New Testament, thousands of martyrs in the church age, and of course, we must not forget Jesus, who suffered on the cross, and before that was beaten and had a crown of thorns smashed into his head. Like us, the psalmist had troubles. And we know that many of the Psalms of David express his fear, anguish, and doubt. And David, who may have influenced this psalm, was persecuted by Saul, then later by his own son. But regardless, we can look at the text of this psalm and see doubt and fear and frustration and agony. But the psalmist is not alone. You see, we too recently have had a lot of troubles. COVID-19, confusion in society, conflict internationally, nationally, locally, and in our own homes, in our own churches. The cash crunch that came with the shutdown for coronavirus, and then the inflation that followed it. And of course, crime. Now, these are just a few of the things that have bedeviled us in recent years, and they're visible evidence of the truth that scriptures teach us. The days of our years are 70, and if by reason of strength they be 80 years, yet is their strength labor and sorrow, for it is soon cut off, and we fly away. Psalm 90. Yes, the psalmist remembered past concerns, but he also remembered present comfort. The psalmist remembered present comfort. Even in the midst of his sorrow, the psalmist knew that God was with him. He was like Paul, a man acquainted with troubles, but one who had confidence in God, as he taught in 1 Corinthians 10:13, which tells us, "No temptation has overtaken you, such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond that which you are able, but with the temptation will also make a way of escape, that you may be able to bear it." Our God is the I am God. He's not the I was God, even though He's always been. He also isn't the I will be God, even though He holds the future. He is. He is the I am God. He is for us and with us and in us. And His presence makes all the difference in our lives. When He is present, He brings immediate power. And this power is available to us, not in the future, but in the present. We only need to turn to Him and He will give us comfort. But what will He do? Well, He will give us His mercy and His ability to endure this imperfect life. He also might deliver us from our temporal troubles. But He also might want to use us to be witnesses in the midst of our troubles, the way that Paul and Silas were singing in the jail in Philippi. You see, if we trust Him, we can sing in the midst of our sorrows. The psalmist also remembered future confidence. The I am God is as much a God of tomorrow as He is of today. He is the eternal God, and our troubles will never outlast Him. He's the immutable God. His love never changes. He's the redeeming God. His arm will never be shortened. We can rely upon Him for tomorrow the same way we can rely upon Him for today. So how do we know, or how can we predict what God will do? Well, it's the same way a hunter locates his prey. We look back and follow his tracks forward. So we can do this best by beginning with His Word. And only after looking at His record should we view our own experiences. And the psalmist knew God's record. He knew how God had created the world. He knew how God had worked with the Old Testament patriarchs. He knew how God had worked with the children of Israel. And because the psalmist had been taught the past, he knew the future. He had been taught the past, and he could track from the past into the future. And as he did that, he also remembered God's eternal characteristics. We also see in this passage that the psalmist remembered the eternal characteristics of God. The psalmist knew from the scriptures that our God is sovereign. Now, a king is sovereign over his nation, but some, like Herod, were subordinate to another king or another emperor. But Yahweh God is superior to all rulers. He's the King of kings and the Lord of lords. Let every soul be subject to the governing authorities, said Paul. For there is no authority except from God, and the authorities that exist are appointed by God. Romans 13, verse 1. You see, God created this world, and He also sustains it. And because He created it, He owns it, and we're merely His stewards. He is truly the sovereign God. The psalmist also knew from the scriptures that our God is omnipotent. God is all powerful. There is nothing greater than He is. And God uses His power not only to correct us, but to build and to create, not to tear down and to destroy. He uses His amazing power to bless His people. Again, Paul clearly knew these same things. What then shall we say to these things in Romans 8? If God is for us, who can be against us? He who did not spare His own Son, but delivered Him up for us all, how shall He not with Him also freely give us all things? Who shall bring a charge against God's elect? It is God who justifies. Who is he who condemns? It is Christ who died, and furthermore, it is also risen, who is even at the right hand of God, who also makes intercession for us. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or peril or sword? As it is written, for your sake we are killed all day long. We are accounted as sheep for the slaughter. Yet in all these things we are more than conquerors through Him who loved us. For I am persuaded that neither death nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other created thing shall be able to separate us from the love of God which is in Christ Jesus our Lord. Romans 8:31 through 38. In addition to these things, the psalmist knew that from the scriptures that our God is omnipresent. Now, in the ancient world, people believed in territorial gods. The gods of the land were not the gods of the ocean, etc. And, for example, the God of the people of Jericho was not the God of the Israelites. But they had heard how powerful Yahweh was, and they trembled, but only Rahab would bow to Him because He was not their God. And, of course, they all suffered for that. Our God is God everywhere. But the most important place that God is, for us at least, is with His people. Jesus promised never to leave us nor forsake us, and He sent His Holy Spirit to empower and to equip us. Again, as Paul taught in Romans 8, for I am persuaded that neither death nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other created thing shall be able to separate us from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus our Lord. So along with these things, the psalmist knew from the scriptures that our God is omniscient as well. You know, people are not as smart as they think they are. Like the old joke goes, those of you who think you know everything really irritate those of us who do. You know, Paul even admitted that he didn't know how to pray, that sometimes we don't even know how to pray to God. We don't even know what to say to God in our prayers. But God knows everything, even the hearts of men, as Jesus said in Luke 16. And Proverbs 15:11 says, hell and destruction are before the Lord. How much more are the hearts of the sons of men? Finally, the psalmist knew from the scriptures that our God is omnibenevolent. God is love, and He cares for His people. He is the very model of a father and a shepherd. He chastens those He loves, and He gives them all their needs as well. The 23rd Psalm says this than probably any other passage of Scripture. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for You are with me. Your rod and Your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. In conclusion, if we're going to have any taste of the abundant life that Jesus promised us here on earth, we need to follow the lead of the psalmist. when we are forced to remember the troubles of this life, when we're forced to go through the troubles of this life, when we're forced to remember these things, let us also remember the love, the power, and the presence of our God, who is our present help in times of trouble. If we turn to Him, armed with the Word and empowered by the Spirit, we can triumph over our troubles. Now, before I go, please remember that this week we need to pray for Lockhart Baptist Church and interim pastor Mike Flowers as they search for their next pastor. Now, join me as I pray today. May the Lord bless us and keep us. May the Lord make His face to shine upon us and be gracious unto us. May the Lord lift up His countenance upon us and give us peace. Amen. Thanks for joining us here. I'll be back soon with another word that we can share together. Every blessing. I'm Dr. Otis Corbett.